I think it's incredibly hypocritical for people to say drivers don't have enough personalities. We missed the way the Earnhardt race. We missed aggression, and then dog on Carson.
They came up with a good plan this past weekend, even though they didn't qualify very good. It's like, big deal, whatever, and woo-woo, take 2 tires instead of 4, get some track position, get him up front. Pow, he wins the race.
I'm a regular 22-year-old kid. A lot of my friends are in college, so I go visit them, and I get to go see that side. And I love sports. I love the Commanders. I love the 76ers. I am into all the TV shows. I love Spotify.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I'm News 5's Heather Williams, and I guess we kind of have to start with the breaking news of the week on Thursday morning, which is actually after when we record our segment with Chris. A federal judge overturned the stay against NASCAR that allowed for 23XI and Front Row Motorsports to run as charter teams this year. That is huge news for the NASCAR world, really, because unless NASCAR, or 23XI and Front Row rather, and I'm assuming they will appeal this to the full federal court, appellate court. They only went to a panel, which is, I think, 2 or 3 of the judges. They have 7 days to do this. They're going to lose their charters for this year and the charters that they purchased from other teams. So that could be huge in a number of ways, a huge shakeup for NASCAR and 23XI and Front Row Motorsports. These drivers that are in these cars, they could leave. I mean, I doubt they leave in the middle of the year, but according to their contracts, they could leave if these teams become open teams because there's less money involved, less prize money. It's just a really big deal if they lose their charters and have to run the rest of the year for open teams. And more urgency for these teams is the fact that they could have sponsors leave. They could have sponsors pull out because they are now charter teams. So really going to be interesting to hear and to see the fallout over the next 7 days. Like I said, we're not going to talk about this with Chris because it happened after we recorded our part of the show with Chris, which we usually do on Wednesday, but stay tuned for that. Also, a big week in Nashville. We will talk with Chris about the race at Nashville and the 2 big headliners. Ryan Blaney finally breaks through and gets a win. You knew it was coming. The way he was running, it wasn't a matter of if he was going to win, but when he was going to win this year. So we'll talk about that with Chris and just how dangerous Ryan Blaney might be in the upcoming year. And then we will also talk about driver hot topic number 1, Carson Hocevar. My opinion of Carson and what he's doing is probably not the same as a lot of the quote unquote media members. You'll hear my opinion when I'm with Chris, but I don't necessarily think he has to change a thing. And so you'll hear Chris's response to that, and we'll kind of get into the whole, will the aggression keep him from winning a race? Interesting debate. You can wait and hear that here in just a moment when we bring in Chris. My guest this week. I know you're going to think I'm crazy when I say this, but I'm super excited. Our guest this week is Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs has always been a fascinating driver for me because he's so closed off. He seems to be so private. When you try to ask him questions, you don't really get a lot from him. But I feel like, and you'll see it in our conversation, it seems like it's contentious a little bit, but on my end, it certainly wasn't. But I feel like I finally had a breakthrough with Ty. I think that I finally started to shave off just a little bit of that hard exterior, that cover that keeps us from really seeing who Ty Gibbs is. And I think I got some real insight into who Ty Gibbs is as a person off the racetrack and how that makes him who he is on the racetrack. So I really enjoyed this interview with Ty, probably more than any other this year, just because it was so different. I mean, there are guys that I really like talking to. Christopher Bell, love talking to him, love talking to Chase Briscoe and Ryan Blaney and a lot of different drivers I enjoy talking to. But I enjoy this on a different level just because I got to learn things about Ty and I got to see a side of Ty that I hadn't seen before, and I'm sure many of you haven't seen either. So really enjoyed my time with Ty, and that's coming up. But first, let's get to Chris.
Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who's also the crew chief for the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Ryan Blaney gets his first win of the season at Nashville this past weekend. Given how tough the start of the season has been for the 12 team, they were still fast, and now they're getting finishes. How dangerous is Blaney and his team right now?
Blaney is a super talented driver, you know, and he's got a lot of abilities. He's now, I think, in the prime of his career. You know, he's still young enough to be full of energy, full of excitement, full of go get 'em. But now he's been there long enough to where he's learned a lot of things to do and not to do to help put himself in position to win. I'm very proud of his young crew chief. He has just done a super job, you know, and they had a pit strategy this past week that, you know, in the early part of the race, they planned this from the start. Most of the cars ran the first stage kind of in half, you know, pitted around halfway for 4 tires and fuel, and then planned on pitting at the end of the stage for 4 tires and fuel. What Blaney's guys did was they ran long, you know, and then pitted later in the first stage, and then got 2 tires, I think, at the break, which gave them a track position advantage that stayed with them the rest of the night. And there was like I think 7 or 8 cars that did that, but the 12 was the one that reaped the most benefits from it. So anyway, you know, those guys, yes, they are dangerous. They're going to be there. They'll have it from at the end of the year when the playoffs start. Those teams will have, those Penske Ford teams will have as good or better equipment than anybody. They've got a lot of smart people there. And, you know, Jonathan's one of them, I'm, you know, they'll be primed to compete for a championship with anybody and everybody. So this is just a start.
So I don't know how to ask this question without it sounding like it's a knock on Chase Elliott, but is Blaney what we all thought Chase Elliott was going to be as far as popular driver, second-generation driver, multi-time champion? Because it just seems like he's in a better place in his career right now.
I think he is in a better place in his career than Chase is. I think part of it is that
it's hard because you don't want to take away from Chase, but
no, but Ryan Blaney is in a company where he and Joey Logano, he has Joey Logano as that's the lead driver in that company, and everybody knows it. But Blaney's not far behind. Chase Elliott's in a company that has Kyle Larson
and William Byron,
and I think it weighs on him psychologically. I think it would anybody. I think any of us. We're human. He's human. He was expected as he came along young, Bill Elliott's son. He had a lot of great training. He's a very talented young man. He got good looks. He's got everything, most popular driver every year, all this stuff. But his expectations were very high, and now he comes along and he's in the same camp with Superman and also William Byron.
And I also think that Chase is a much more private individual than Ryan Blaney. So being popular driver and all those things, it's harder on him. Being a popular guy, being out, showing off in Nashville, doing his thing, doing promotions, that's all in Blaney's wheelhouse. And it's not in Chase's. No,
and Blaney is at times Blaney lets his emotions out and on the radio and so on and so forth, and complains a lot, and it sounds like, man, what's wrong with this guy sometimes. But I think his crew, his team, his people, his owner, his supporters, everybody, they're used to that now, and they know that, okay, we're still going to get the best Ryan Blaney. When it comes right down to it, if our team if we're in a position to win, to do whatever, you're going to get the best Ryan Blaney that Ryan Blaney has to offer, and he's going to do a lot of good things, and he's capable of winning anywhere. I mean, he's a very, very talented young man, and I think where he's at, he is comfortable with. He knows he's got a great future ahead of him. He knows he's got great people around him and great equipment under him every week, and he knows that even when they're off, there's already a lot of smart people working on how they're going to get better later on, whether it be next week or a month later or 2 months later, whatever, but they are going to get better. They've proved it over and over. How many we talked last year, like, oh my gosh, the Fords, the Penske team, they're just, man, they might as well just stay home early in the year. They won the championship.
Again.
So, you know, it could be this year too. I think, I know a lot of guys on that team and close to that, and you know, they're very confident in their driver, and they know that he's not going to let them down. And they came up with a good plan this past weekend, even though they didn't qualify very good. You know, it's like, yeah, big deal, whatever. You know, and woo-woo, take 2 tires instead of 4, get some track position, get him up front. Pow, he wins the race. So you know, they're capable of winning 2, 3, 4 in a row. They're capable of doing that, and they might. And, you know, he's in championship play now, and, you know, things, you know, it's going to be there's going to be Penske cars in the playoffs. So,
all of them.
All of them. So.
And the Wood Brothers, too.
And the Wood Brothers, too, which is a Penske.
It's like Penske Light.
Offspring, and yes, and you know, that's going to be hard. I mean, it's going to be, even for the Hendrick or the Gibbs camp, they're going to be hard to beat. Yeah,
they've shown that over and over again.
Yeah. Cream's going to rise to the top, and the cream's going to be Penske Racing. There's going to be some of it anyway. And this year, I think when the playoffs come on, man, whew, fold your hat and duck under the table and keep an eye on because there's going to be a lot of action, a lot of shrapnel flying.
So Carson Hocevar is once again ruffling feathers with his aggressive driving. Personally, I'm fine with it, but I'm out there driving. The 77 is really close to his first win in the series. Do you think that the way he drives might make it harder for him to get to victory lane?
Well, now there's going to be some people that are going to be a little angry with him because of things that's happened, and most of those people feel like it's all his fault and not any of their fault. Okay, we're all human. That's probably not 100% true, but they think that. So some of those guys may make it a little harder for him to get through traffic or on a restart or get any help on well, it doesn't have to be a speedway anymore. It's anywhere where you get a push where you need to push down a straightaway or push somebody else. It may be a little bit, yes, but the challenge for him as a young man, I talked to him at Spire 2 weeks ago or so in the shop one day for about 20 minutes, and you know, he is ultra talented young man. He's got more raw talent in his little finger than most people ever dream of, and you know, I think he realizes that, but it's not like he's boastful about it. He's not arrogant about it, and he knows that, okay, I've made some mistakes, and I'm going to make some other because I'm human. He knows that, and I think it's just the thing of finding those times that he can, you know, let up for just a little bit, just an instant, and give a guy on the outside of him or in front of him or down on the inside of him when he's going by, just give him a little bit of breathing room.
And Jeff Dickerson actually said that on the podcast with Door Bumper Clear this week. But here's my thing about Carson. I think it's incredibly hypocritical for people to say drivers don't have enough personalities, we miss the way that Earnhardt raced, we miss aggression, and then dog on Carson. Because Carson is all those things that people have been saying for years that they want out of drivers. Yep. But now that they have it, they don't want that either.
They don't like him. So, you know, I get your point, and it's kind of funny because this week I've been watching the new Earnhardt kind of documentary, mini-series, whatever you call it. I've watched the first couple of episodes so far. And, you know, I lived through this. I saw this. Of course, it's been 35 and 25 years ago, but it's like, you know, I was thinking about this. I was thinking Carson Hocevar and a couple others, Ross Chastain, not too awful long ago. And I thought to myself, as they were showing highlights of Earnhardt's career and all the stuff he did and everybody, woo, he's the greatest and everything like that, which is fine, but I'm thinking, man, if you had Earnhardt now and showed all that stuff now in present lifetime, you know, Carson Hocevar looked like a little Bo Peep.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's like an angel.
He's a choir boy. Yeah.
He's a choir boy compared to this. And you know what, Heather, a lot of people don't remember too that in the documentary kind of brings us out a little bit, but you know, there were a lot of people who did not like Earnhardt.
Oh no, Earnhardt did not really. Earnhardt was like a lot of drivers, but just more extreme example that he was not super popular until he started to get older in his career. He was as hated as he was liked. You see it with Kyle Busch and Harvick at the end of his career, where they were getting booed and booed and booed, and as they get later into their career, the boos turn into cheers a little bit more.
Yeah, now they're a hero. Darrell Waltrip got more boos than the Russians. And, you know, for most of his career, and then by the time he made it to the booth, you'd have thought he was the Pope or something. I mean,
and the same is true for Earnhardt. Like, he was the black cat for his entire career.
Yes.
And I will say this about Carson, he has at least embraced that, right? And it's taken some drivers a little bit longer, too. Like, Denny Hamlin has kind of embraced being the bad guy, but it took him a while to get there and to be comfortable with that. Carson is at least at the point early on that's like, well, any attention is good attention, at least they're talking about me.
Well, here's my prediction. The boy is so talented. If a disaster doesn't happen, he's going to win races. He's
going to win this year.
It's going to win probably this year. And I heard somebody else talking, on a radio show or something, talking about, how bad a year he was having and all this stuff and this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking to myself, what?
Yeah.
Have you watched him on the racetrack? Yeah, maybe his results aren't there. You can't compare him to,
well, he's got
Denny Hamlin or something.
He's got two second place finishes in the last month, and he probably would have had 3 if he doesn't blow up at the Coke 600.
You're right about that. He was going to win the World 600, which would have been huge. But once he wins a couple races, and everybody kind of then like, okay, it's happened, I'm used to it. He's a top-line driver, it's all right. And then everybody kind of quits talking about it. I think you will see that young man all of a sudden he'll start making better decisions, and he'll quietly go about his business. Now, he'll still, when it comes right down to finishing first or second or whatever, he'll rub some fenders. But does he run into Ricky Stenhouse, in the first stage? In the first stage, for kind of no reason, and risk himself getting wrecked on top of knocking out the 47 car. Does he do that? No. That stuff, I think, will go away. And it will quietly go away, and then 2 years from now, we'll talk about, you know what? Carson Hocevar won a few races, and now he's in championship contention. He's doing this and doing that and all this, that, and other, and I don't hear people complaining about him anymore.
Well, I think, with Carson, and this was the same thing with Ross, is they believe that they can win and run up front, but they don't believe that anyone else believed that. And so even early on in the race, they're trying to prove that they belong up front.
Exactly.
Because you've seen a change in Ross and we talked about this last week, where he's now able to run up front and get up front and not have to push people around to get there. And I think Carson is kind of in that same position, especially being at Spire, which they've had speed, but they don't have the reputation historically of being one of the better teams in the track. He feels like he has to prove to everyone that he belongs.
I think you're exactly right, and I think the part of that too is you alluded to, touched on, is that he also wants the racing community to think of his team, Spire, not only his car, but his team, the company he works for. I think he wants people to say, man, those guys are doing a real good job. If you watch them, they've won 2 or 3 races. Now they're running, this car's running up front. They finished a couple in the top 10. And they qualified here, they qualified there. They won stages. They did this, they did that. They led laps. They have really turned the juice on. Trust me, I'm not involved in their team now or whatever, but we're there enough doing business with Spire Truck Team that that you can see movement and energy in that building. There's a lot of stuff going on in that building in the Cup cars. They got a lot going on. They got a lot of people there. They're moving pieces around, pieces being sometimes personnel pieces and sometimes other things to say, okay, we've got a vision out there and we're going to get to it. We're going to be more successful. We're going to be one of the top teams. We have goals. We're going to meet our goals maybe a little later, maybe a little earlier than what we first said, but we're going forward and we're going to win races and we're going to be in this for a long time. I really feel like that's going to be a truth. And I think they're going to be a force. And I think in the coming near future, you're going to see them really putting the heat on, the effort. And Carson Hocevar is a guy that's he's going to raise his hand up for the challenge. Let me out there. Let me go on. Let me get in the middle of that. Let me be the guy you depend on, and me be the guy that you say, Carson, we need to win a race.
Yeah.
Well, I think he loves the pressure.
I think he wants to be the lead guy at Spire.
Sure he does. Sure he does. He's young. He's ready for that. And the young man has a huge future ahead of him. He's got raw talent, ability. He's no fear. He just needs to.
He's the old dart without feathers.
He is. They just need to polish it. He needs to listen to people around him. He needs to get a little patience and everything like that. Come on, everybody's like that. I mean,
we were all like that at 20. People weren't just recording everything that we did all the time.
No, that's it. We weren't out in the public as much as he is in the media eye that's everywhere now. You do something, and 5 seconds later, people in China know all about it. So it's like, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine, and he's going to be 10 years down the road, we're going to be talking about what a great career he's having.
For sure. NASCAR heads to Carson's home state, Michigan, this week. Chris, this is a big deal for the manufacturers. What's the key to winning in the Music City, or in the Motor City?
Well, first of all, this is a racetrack now that is like, man, this place is fast. There's a lot of speed there. There's a lot of grip in that racetrack. They've done things to put grip in the racetrack, and the cars go very fast. It's a balance between, quote, trimming the cars out, trying to get raw speed, but yet you have to have enough drivability for the driver to control the thing, especially in traffic. So that's a pretty tight balance, pretty razor edge balance. And it's going to come down to some gas mileage. So those engineers and crew chiefs are going to be calculating. They already have been this week. I promise you, they've run simulation for how long can we run, what happened. They've got all kind of game plans and so on and so forth. Or what happens if a caution comes out here? What happens if we run this many green laps or that many green laps? What happens if, we take 2 tires, take 4 tires, whatever? There's going to be calculators blowing up all up and down pit road. I guess now computers. Nobody uses a calculator but me. But there's also going to be brains frying, and the drivers are going to be anxious about it, and they're going to be knowing, okay, do I need to be saving 50%, 80%, 20, whatever? Tell me what I need to be doing here, because they know in their head that yeah, I might be leading the race here, but I might be the only one that runs out of gas and I run 25th. So it's a collection of all things. The bodies are very important, because aero is very important in that fast of a racetrack. Of course, all the car makers are there, and they want to stick their chest out when that checkered flag waves and say, yep, that's our cars winning the race right there. That's our deal. That's us. It's always been, there's a lot of pressure, especially in the Cup Series, to be the guy that wins for our support, our car manufacturer help. There's a lot of pride with it. So I think you'll see a good race. There might be portions of it that get a little confusing and maybe even a little bit boring, and say, oh, now wait a minute, who's doing what, and who's this, that, and the other, and the broadcaster's going to have a hard time keeping up with the two. So just stay with it, and I guarantee you there'll be some drama by the end of that race, and who knows who will come out with a win, but somebody's going to be really happy, and one of the car makers are going to be really happy. Maybe they'll give us all free cars on Monday.
Let's hope.
Ty, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for letting me come on.
So we're about halfway through the season, well, at least the regular season anyway. I feel like the momentum is starting to build around your team. People are starting talking about the speed and stuff that you have shown in the last few weeks. What's your feeling? How do you feel like you're running right now?
Yeah, well, we've had a very slow start to the season with some you know, some bad luck and unexpected stuff, but I feel like we've been, pretty solid and we have a lot of great speeds, so I'm not worried at all about, where we're at, but looking forward to the next races and hopefully we can get a win at these next races. I think we'll be really strong at.
Yeah, when you think about this stretch of races, these mile and a half or almost mile and a half in the case of Nashville, I mean, Joe Gibbs Racing is always what you think about at those kind of tracks. So you've got to feel good about, and you mentioned it, but this could be a really strong run for you guys, Michigan and Nashville. Do you kind of circle this a little bit on the calendar?
For me, I don't really circle anything on the calendar. I feel like I just take it week by week and try to go win them all. But I'm definitely excited for these next two for sure.
Um, for you, obviously, are you chasing a win or are you trying to chase points? Like where do you feel like you are position wise as far as the playoffs goes? Do you feel like you need a win at this point?
I would definitely say the win will be very helpful, and yeah, I feel like for me that's kind of my goal every week, so it's not really any different.
What do you think has been the biggest obstacle this year for you guys? Is it luck? Is it the combination of having a new crew chief? Is it a little bit of both? Because, I mean, like I mentioned in the kind of lead in here, you can see you guys have the speed. You can see you guys are like that close. But what's been the biggest challenge, do you think?
Yeah, we've really had a lot of uncontrollable circumstances that have happened with us this year. We got wrecked at Daytona. We got wrecked at Atlanta. Those were two that were out of our control. Then we got a brake rotor broke at Phoenix. Then we got wrecked at Coda. So we've finished horrible for the first four, and that really sets you back. And I don't think a lot of people look at that, but I really don't personally care because I think that we're really strong, and I'm not worried about where we're at all. I feel like we're really really strong, and I'm confident in my team. So it just is what it is, and just got to keep going.
So today I just finished watching the Earnhardt documentary, and it was interesting to me because, I've been around the sport long enough that I was around the sport when a lot of that went down. And you always see these constant waves of kind of changing of the guards. You're one of the younger guys in the sport. Definitely it's becoming your guys' time in the sport. Do you feel that? Do you feel like you guys, as the younger guys, are kind of becoming more of the space face of the sport? Because you see Blaney's already got a championship, but you got young guys like William Byron and yourself, and really kind of different guys up front now.
Yeah, I mean, I think so a little bit, but honestly, I don't really focus too much on that and haven't really thought about a whole lot about it. It's just because we have a lot going on over here, but definitely think that it's definitely a generational change on the drivers for sure.
So for you, like, you're so quiet. I mean, I'm fascinated by you. I love it. I mean, I do. The same thing with, I talked to Shane Van Gisbergen
Well, I
last
think
week.
if we talked about different things besides racing, you would see me differently. But
Yeah,
for
for
me,
sure.
it's like the racing stuff. Where it's, I mean, I could probably tell you for the next 30 questions that get asked for the whole week, I could tell you exactly what they are. So I think that's why it probably seems like that. I don't necessarily think I'm gonna be all enthusiastic about the 17th question I've
No,
got in a row. But
I
I
get
think like
that.
if we
I
got to
get
talk
that.
about different things for sure, I think it changes, and that's what I always tell people because I've heard the same thing, and I don't want to look like that, but I think if it got changed, I think people would understand as well.
Well, I get that because you actually, I was going to say, you kind of remind me in Shane Van Gisbergen in that fact that, like,
Mhm.
I know that both of you guys are absolutely fascinating people offside out of the racetrack. I feel
Uh,
confident in
Thank you.
that.
Yeah,
But that's what's kind of intriguing to me about you is that
yeah,
people don't know a lot about you. I mean, I know you're
yeah.
a Redskins fan. I know that you're obviously a hell of a racer,
Oh,
but you
thank you.
you, you don't really let much more of that out about you. And
Yeah,
I think that's something that's actually kind of cool about you, and I think that's cool about
thank you.
SVG because it's like it's a little bit of mystery around who Ty
Yeah.
Gibbs actually is.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's the way it's kind of perceived, but also like I said, like if we were outside, if we were not talking about racing, I think we could, it would be a lot different. But a lot of it kind of, of course, media and PR questions are, like kind of related as work, and what we do isn't work, but it kind of feels like that sometimes. So I think if we were talking about different things, it would. I just think it's like, I mean, if you look at the NFL and the stuff they ask when they get into, statistics and all that, I think it's the same way. But
Oh,
I definitely feel like I'm definitely, this is not, I mean, my identity is not just being answering PR questions.
so
I
if there
think
was
like
one
all
thing you
other
wanted
stuff
fans to
too.
know about you, that you wanted fans to know about you, besides Ty Gibbs the racer, what would you want them to know?
I mean, I'm a regular 22-year-old kid. A lot of my friends are in college, so I go visit them and I get to go see that side. And I love sports. I love the Commanders. I love the 76ers. I am on all into all the TV shows. I love Spotify. I'm always on Spotify listening to music. I know some of the trends. I don't know all of them. I don't know. I'm just a regular 22-year-old. There's not much besides that. I think people see it as like I just am in the racing questions and getting asked like about Michigan and tracks that I say the same thing about like 67 times. And I think that's just the bad rep I get. But uh, I mean, we can talk about other things, and I'm always open to that.
I mean, I I I don't give you a bad rap for it. Like I said, I love it. I
Yeah.
love
No,
guys
I
people that are
appreciate that, but
different.
I just want to. I've heard people talk about it, so I
Yeah,
wanted to.
no, I mean, this is your opportunity to give. I don't want to
Yeah.
always talk about racing. I feel like I have to ask a couple of racing questions, but we don't
Yeah.
always have to talk about racing. Let me ask you this: because I'm not up on the trends. I'm old woman.
Uh,
What's at the top of your Spotify list that I should listen to right now?
So what I listen to right now has been a lot of house music. This I listened to some Sublime today, but I listen to a lot of house music because it's the summer's out and it's just good vibes. So for me it's been like a lot of Fisher, John Summit, just kind of house music. I
All
don't know
right.
if you listen. I don't know if the your generation listens to house music, but
No,
just
I mean, I'm kind of an
no, not
alternative
too
gal.
many. Yeah, not too much. I like the rap is fun, but it gets it's too much going on, and it's nice to just kind of have something to chill to. So that probably add some country music. I love Culture Wall. I honestly enjoy all the music. Like I don't. I'm not just on one genre. Like I don't think I could just listen to old country music. I don't think I could just listen to rap. I listen to everything, and I mean I'm ADHD, so everything and everything always. So just all over the place.
I can identify with that part of the statement for sure because I have also ADHD and my playlist is all over the place. All right, I'm gonna check out some house music when we get down here.
Okay.
I'm gonna check out some stuff and see. For my final thought today, I want to talk about what I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, which was the breaking news about 2311 in Front Row Motorsports and the stay being overturned against their ability to run as a charter team this season as this kind of works its way through the legal system. And I don't really want to take sides on the lawsuit per se, but I do kind of want to chime in on this ruling specifically because I think it's an important one. I am of the belief that once the year has started, that they should be able to play it out as charter teams and let's solve this in the off season. Just because to NASCAR, maybe to 2311 and front row, not so much. To the court, certainly, these are just names on the paper and kind of a chess game, if you will. But for the drivers and the sponsors and the tire changers, crew chiefs, the real people that are involved in this lawsuit, this is real life. This is their money, these are their jobs, this is their livelihood, this is how they promote their business, whatever it may be. And changing the rules midway through the season complicates things a little bit. It puts jobs in jeopardy. It puts, you know, livelihoods in jeopardy. It puts sponsorships in jeopardy. And I know you're going to say, well, 2311 in Front Row Motorsports put them in that position. And I certainly can't disagree with that. But once we kind of establish the rules for the season, I just think we should roll with it. I think that we should settle this. If a judge or NASCAR, whatever, wants to get, restitution afterwards, if they decide, well, they ran illegally during the year as a charter team and give us some of that money back, I can understand that because that then punishes Front Row and 2311, punitive damages that NASCAR lost during the season. But I personally just don't like the idea of changing midstream. And, some of this is kind of based on my very limited, and I mean very limited understanding of law and case law and how some of this works. Having done some undergraduate work in law at one point, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. But I said, again, my knowledge, and especially in this case, is pretty limited. But I just think that it's crazy to kind of, if this plays out the way that it is on course to do right now. Now, again, as I mentioned at the top, and the full court of appeals could overturn this stay, and it could put the stay back in, or the overturning of the stay, and it could put the stay back into effect if 2311 and Front Row Motorsports can get that date and can get that, convince them to do so. But personally, I just don't like the idea of changing course mid-court, not because of any side or belief I have, NASCAR versus these teams or charters versus non-charters or any of that kind of stuff, but just for everybody else involved and the real lives that it could affect. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.